Hello, you're welcome. This is the Edexcel Higher Tier Paper 2 Calculator paper from November 2023. Let's get right on it. Question 1 says, expand and simplify 3 bracket 2y minus 5 close bracket plus 7 into bracket y plus 2. Now let's expand this and then we simplify. 3 times 2y, that's going to be 6y. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. 7 times y is plus 7y, and 7 times plus 2 is plus 14. We can still simplify further, so I'm just going to rearrange the terms. So you have 6y plus 7y, let's write it here, and then negative 15 plus 14. So what do we have? 6y plus 7y, that's 13y. Negative 15 add 14 is negative 1. So the answer is 13y minus 1. Okay, let's look at the second part of this, of number 1. Factorize fully 6x squared plus 15x. We have to factorize fully. Look at this first term and the second term. What is common? 3 is common. 3 can divide 6 and 15. That's the highest common factor. And then x. So you have 3x, open a bracket. Then 3x goes into 6x squared. That would be 2x. And then 3x goes into 15x, that will be 5. We have factorized fully. So here I'm going to write 3x into bracket, 2x plus 5. There you go. Okay, let's look at the next question. C says, make G the subject of the formula. So F is equal to 3G plus 11. If you are to make G the subject, G has to stay alone. First of all, let's remove the plus 11. Let's take away 11 from both sides. So when you subtract 11 here and 11 here, this just cancels out, and then you have F minus 11 is equal to 3G. But we can still get rid of the 3 since we need G to stay alone. So divide both sides by 3, and 3 cancels 3. So G is now equal to what? F minus 11 all divided by 3. There you go. Okay, let's look at the next one. Number 2 says, Karen is organizing a party for a charity. She spent £100 on food, £120 on a hall, £80 on a DJ. Karen sells 54 tickets for the party. Each ticket costs £7.50. Work out the percentage profit Karen makes for the charity. Okay, so let's just get the formula for percentage profit, which is equal to profit over what she spent. So I'm going to say over spent, all right, then times 100%. Let's get her spent. Okay, now we're told that she spent £100, so I'm going to add £100 to £120 to £80. Okay, £80. So let's add all these up. Let me get a calculator and then let's do that. So 100 plus, we can do this without using a calculator, plus 120 and then plus 80. What is this going to be? That's 300. So she spent £300. Okay. Now what about the income? That's the money generated from this party. We're told that she sells 54 tickets for the party, and each ticket costs £7.50. So 54 times £7.50. Okay, let's get a calculator again and do 54 times £7.50. What's that going to be? That's 405. So we have 405. That's the income, £405. Now that we have the income, we can get the profit. So let me just do it here. Profit now will be equal to the income, which is 405, minus what she spent. So that's £300. Okay, now when you take the difference, what's that going to be? That's 105. So this is her profit. This is her profit, £105. So we come here now and then we plug it into this percentage profit formula. The profit is £105 divided by how much that she spent, which is £300. Okay, then times 100%. times 100%. Okay, now let's get our calculator and just plug in everything. But before that, I think we can simplify a little bit. So I'm going to say 0 cancel 0, 0 cancel 0. So we have 105 divided by 3. We can easily divide this, but let's use our calculator. Don't worry, it's a calculator paper, so not to worry. That's 105 divided by 3. What do we have? That's 35. So the percentage profit is 35%. 35%. So here I'm just going to put 35%. Beautiful. Let's go to question number 3. Number 3 says, Andrew invests £4,500 in a savings account for 2 years. The account pays compound interest at the rate of 3.4% per year. Calculate how much Andrew has in this savings account at the end of 2 years. Now, we're going to use the compound interest formula, which is given by A is equal to P into bracket 1 plus R over 100, close bracket, raised to power n. P is the principal, that's the amount invested. In this case, A is the amount that you would have after the end of, maybe after 2 years or 3 years or whatever duration that you have for the investment. R is the rate, as we have here. The rate here is what, 3.4%, and n is the number of periods or years. So let's plug in all of this into the formula and let's get the amount. The principal is what? The amount invested, which is £4,500. Then 1 plus, what's the rate? It is what? 3.4. That's 3.4%. That's over 100. And the number of years, that's 2 here. So I'm going to simplify what I have in the bracket so that I can easily get the amount after 2 years. Okay, so 3.4 divided by 100 is going to be what? 3.4 divided by 100. We can use a calculator. Let's use a calculator to save time. So 3.4 divided by 100. You don't need to be afraid using a calculator. What do you have? 3.4 divided by 100. That's 0.04 plus 1. So let's add 1 to it. That's going to be what? 1.034. Now there's a squared here. 1.034. 1.034 squared. Okay, we're going to plug in everything into the formula and let's get the amount. So let's use our calculator. That will be 1.034 squared, then times 4,500. What do you have? That's 4811.202. So the amount is equal to 4811.202. But let's round it up to 2 decimal places. 4811.20, which is £4,811 and then 20p. Okay, let's move on to question number 4, which says we should solve 5x minus 14 is equal to 52 minus x. So I'm going to add x to both sides to get rid of this negative x from here. So you have 5x plus x, which is 6x minus 14 is equal to 52. Now I'll add 14 to both sides. Okay, and this just cancels out. You have 6x, which is equal to, that's 66. So I'll divide both sides by 6, and x is equal to 66 over 6, which is what? 11. So the value of x here is 11. Okay, let's go to question number 5. Chris, Debbie, and Errol share some money in the ratio 3 to 4 to 2. Debbie gets £120. Chris then gives some of his share to Debbie and some of his share to Errol. The money that Chris, Debbie, and Errol each have is now in the ratio 2 to 5 to 3. How much money did Chris give to Errol? So I want us to get the amount that Chris, Debbie, and Errol had initially. We're told that Debbie gets £120. So what I'm going to do here is to try to get the amount each of them got, both Chris and Errol. So let's start. For Chris, the ratio for Chris is what? 3. So I'll draw 3 boxes. This is one way of getting your answer. Okay, 3 boxes. That's for the Chris had a ratio of 3. Then for Debbie, we're going to give Debbie 4 boxes because we have a ratio of 4 for Debbie. So 4 boxes. Now what about for Errol? So for Errol, how many boxes? 2 boxes. Okay. Now we're told that Debbie gets 120 pounds. Debbie gets 120 pounds. So for Debbie, since we have 4 boxes for Debbie, I'm going to distribute or divide 120 into these boxes, and each of them needs to be equal. So this is going to be what? If you divide 120 by 4, you get what? 30. So each of them will be 30. So this is 30 pounds, 30 pounds for everything. And not just these boxes, all the boxes. Okay, now we know how much Chris gets. Chris, if you add this, you get 90 pounds. Debbie gets 120 pounds, as was given in the question, and Errol gets 60 pounds. So we have their individual amount. But this next part says Chris then gives some of his share to Debbie and some of his share to Errol. The money that Chris, Debbie, and Errol each have is now in the ratio 2:5:3. Now we need to get how much they all shared. So let's add these amounts: 90 plus 120 plus 60. 90 plus 120 plus 60, that's what? 270. So 270 is the amount that they all shared. 270. Okay. So we're going to share this amount in this ratio now, 2:5:3. So for Chris, for Debbie, and for Errol, if you add this ratio, 2 plus 5 is 7 plus 3 is 10. So let's divide 270 by 10. 270 by 10. You're going to get what? 27. All right, 27 pounds. So we'll multiply 27 by 2 to get for Chris, since Chris has a ratio of 2. 27 times 2 is what? That's 54. So Chris gets 54 pounds. For the next one, Debbie had a ratio of 3. So we'll multiply 27 by 5 using a calculator. 27 times 5 is what? 27 times 5 is 135. So Debbie gets 135 pounds. And for Errol, that's 3 times 27. 3 times 27 is what? 81. So that's 81 pounds. Okay, we now have the amount that they have now after Chris has given some of his share to Debbie and to Errol. The question says, how much money did Chris give to Errol? So we need to know how much Errol had before. Errol had a share of 60 pounds. Now Errol had what? 81 pounds. So for us to get how much Chris gave to Errol, I'm going to do 81, which is the amount that Errol had now, and the amount that Errol had before. So 81 minus 60, that's going to be what? 21. So which means Chris gave Errol 21 pounds. 21 pounds. Chris gave Errol 21 pounds, and that is it. Okay, let's go to question number 6. Question number 6 says the bearing of port B from port A. From port A. So we're going to start it from port A. Let's call this port A. All right. What's the bearing? 147. Now, if I have to draw the cardinal point like this, okay, like this, each of the quadrant has angular size of 90 degrees. So if I'm getting 147 degrees, you have to go clockwise, all right, and you start from the North Pole. This is the North Pole, this one here. So we go like this, but this is 147. If you go like this, that's angle on a straight line, which is 180 degrees, but we should not get to the other line, so we have to stop somewhere here, okay, and then draw a line going to what? Port B. So this is port A, port B is somewhere here, all right. This is the North Pole, this is port B. For us to get the bearing of port A from port B, the angle has to be this one here. Okay, so this one here, the bearing is this one. Okay, now this angle, let me just highlight it here for you. This angle here and this angle, they are called co-interior angles. They are called co-interior angles. What does that mean? If you have two parallel lines like this and you have a transversal, this angle here and this angle, they are called co-interior angles, and they add up to give you 180 degrees. And that's what is happening here again. This north pole here, this line here and this line here, they are parallel lines, and this angle, then this angle, they are co-interior angles, so they must add up to give you 180 degrees. So what does that mean? Since this angle here is 147 degrees, for us to get this other angle, we have to subtract that from 180 degrees. If you subtract 147 from 180, you are going to get what? 33 degrees. So this is 33 degrees. But we're not interested in this angle. We're interested in this bearing, this one here, from here all the way to the line that connects the two ports, which is this one here. Angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. If we have to get this angle, I have to subtract 33 from 360 degrees. So let's do that. That will be what? 360 degrees minus 33 degrees. And if you do this, what are you going to have? 327 degrees. So this bearing here is 327 degrees. Now, which means that the bearing of port A from port B is 327 degrees. So there's actually a simple way of getting your answer. It's called the back bearing tip. Okay, so when you have something like this, all right, if you are told that, oh, the bearing of port B from port A is this, work out the bearing of port A from port B. That's back bearing. Now this is the rule. If the bearing is not up to 180 degrees, to get the back bearing, you have to add 180 degrees to that bearing. If the bearing is more than 180 degrees, to get the back bearing, you have to subtract 180 degrees from that bearing. Look at this. In this case now, this is 147 degrees. It is not up to 180 degrees. So to get the back bearing, you have to now add 180 degrees to 147 degrees. Let's add and let's see what this will give us. So this is 7 degrees. This 7, if you add 8 plus 4 is 12. You write to carry 1, and when you add 1 here, you have 3. So what do you have? 327 degrees. This is a quick way of getting the back bearing as we're asked in this question. Okay, let's go to question number 7, which says the diagram shows an empty tank in the shape of a cylinder. This is the radius 15 centimeters, and this is the height, which is what? 43 centimeters. So let's look at the question. The cylinder has a radius of 15 centimeters and a height of 43 centimeters. Water flows into the tank at a rate of 0.47 liters per minute. Okay. Calculate the number of minutes it will take to completely fill the tank. Give your answer correct to the nearest minute. Now, for us to solve this question, we must know the capacity of this cylindrical tank. Okay. Now, what's the volume of a cylinder? Is given as what? Pi r squared h. So let's get it into the, now pi, the radius is what? 15 centimeters squared. Okay, then times what's the height? 43 centimeters. So let's plug in everything into the calculator and let's get our answer. That's pi, this is pi, times 15 squared, and then times 43. So what is this going to give us? That's what? 30394.90892. I'm going to estimate it to the nearest whole number, which is 30395. So 30395 centimeters cubed. Okay. Now, 1 liter is equal to 1000 centimeter cubed. I want to convert this to liters. So if you want to convert 30395 centimeters cubed to to liters, you have to divide it by 1000. Okay, so divided by 1000. If you are converted to liters, so what is going to give you? That will be what? 30.395 liters. So again, we're told that the water flows into the tank at the rate of 0.47 liters per minute. So 0.47 liters per minute. Now, what about how long will it now take to fill up this tank, which is 30.395 liters? So that's going to be what? 30.395 divided by what? 0.47. This is going to be the number of minutes it will take to fill up the tank. So let's divide now. 30.395 divided by 0.47. What is this going to give us? That will be 64.6, approximately what? 65 minutes, because we're told to round it up to the nearest minute. So that will be what? 65 minutes. Okay, let's go to question number 8. A number x is written correct to two significant figures. The result is 1.9. Complete the error interval for x. So let me draw this and then show it on the number line. This is 1.9. Okay, and this is going to be, this is 2.0. What about this 1.8? If the number x is written correct to two significant figures, we need to get the midpoint, and the midpoint is going to be between 1.8 and 1.9, and another one here between 1.9 and 2.0. So the midpoint here is what? 1.85, and here is what? 1.95. So which means the error interval for x is going to be between 1.85 and then 1.95. That's how you do it. Okay, let's look at question number 9, which says expand and simplify x plus 7 in bracket, and then x minus 2 in bracket, and then x plus 3 in bracket. But let's start with the first two brackets. Let's expand this. X times x, that's x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. 7 times x is plus 7x. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. If you simplify this, you have x squared. Negative 2x plus 7x is plus 5x, and then negative 14. So we're going to bring in the last bracket like this. X squared will multiply everything you have in this bracket, same for 5x and same for negative 14. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 3 is plus 3x squared. We're done with that. Let's come to 5x. 5x times x is plus 5x squared. 5x times 3 is plus 15x. Negative 14 times x is negative 14x. Negative 14 times 3 is what? Negative 42. Now let's simplify this. This will be x cubed. 3x squared plus 5x squared is plus 8x squared. 15x minus 14x is plus x. And then you have negative 42. So there you go. The final answer is what? X cubed plus 8x squared plus x minus 42. Yeah. Okay, let's look at question number 10. Shaka has to complete 2 tests. He can either pass or fail each test. The probability that he will pass the first test is 0.87. Okay. If he passes the first test, the probability that he will pass the second test is 0.94. If he fails the first test, the probability that he will pass the second test is 0.73. Complete the probability tree diagram for this information. So that's the first thing we need to do. Okay, let's start off by, this is 0.87. If he passed the first test, the probability that he will pass the second test is 0.94. So this is 0.94 because it's for pass. Now, these two, pass and fail here, must add up to 1. The sum of the probabilities must add up to 1. So if for pass is 0.94, for fail is going to be what? Take away 0.94 from 1, you're going to have 0.06. That's for that. Okay, let's come to the second part. Say if he fails the first test, the probability that we pass the second test is 0.73. That we pass the second test is 0.73. So this is 0.73. Now again, if you add these two probabilities, they must add up to 1. Take away 0.73 from 1, you are going to have 0.27. So this is 0.27. We have just completed the probability tree diagram. The second part says, work out the probability that Shaka passes at least one of the tests. So what does that mean? It's either he passes the first and the second, or he passes the first and fails the second, or he fails the first and passes the second. These are the probabilities you're going to have. But there's an easier way of even doing this. If you want to get the probability that he will pass at least one, which means we are to rule out the probability that he will fail the two tests. So let's get the probability that he will fail the two tests. Since this has to be ruled out, that he will fail the two tests, it's going to be, let's come to the tree diagram. Oh, here I'm meant to, so for this one too, they'll add up to 1. You take away this from 1, you're going to have what? 0.13. So that he will fail the two tests, this one and this have to be multiplied together. 0.13 times 0.27. 0.13 times 0.27. Let's get a calculator and let's multiply that. 0.13 times 0.27. What's that? 0.27. Okay, that's 0.0351. 0.0351. Now, because we are trying to rule out the probability that he will fail the two tests, since it's not going to be part of at least that he will pass at least one of the tests, we are taking it out. And like I said before, when you add all the probabilities, they must be equal to 1. So if we are ruling out this, it's meant to be 1 minus 0.0351. So when this happens, what are you going to have? So let's do this. 1 minus 0.0351. Get a calculator. 1 minus 0.0351. This is going to be what? 0.9649. 0.9649. So this is the probability that he will pass at least one of the tests. Thank you for staying till this time. In the next video, I'm going to continue from question number 11. Do well to subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and I will see you in the next one. It's bye for now.